Team news, how things are looking at the moment? Anybody coming back? Anybody?
Yeah, I think we're looking pretty healthy at the moment. We've got, obviously, Grounds is suspended, which is probably not the best timing of a suspension, but again, that's part and parcel of a championship and what you've got to deal with. Rowett, we don't think he'll be back till the next international break, after the next break. So again, he's a big miss for us at the moment, and probably we haven't really been able to get a really settled midfield pairing out for a while now, which has probably had some effect. And Paul Caddis obviously still out with a shoulder, but apart from that, I think everyone's trained this morning. We've had a good week's training. We've put an extra day into training because obviously we played Friday and we don't play till Sunday, so we'll have had extra preparation with the players that are fit.
Now this game coming up on Sunday, much anticipated amongst the fans. How big a game is it for you and the players?
Well, it's a massive game. It's a massive game for anyone. You know, I think as a manager, I'll never ever play this type of game down, because that's what the football's about. You know, it's about these local derbies. It's about the extra attendance that it brings. It's about the extra enthusiasm that it brings from the fans, and also, of course, the rivalry, which I hope doesn't get too heated. But you know, part and parcel of a rivalry is that there's a little bit of banter flying between the two fan bases. I think the challenge of a manager is always the same. You know, you want the players to understand and appreciate the derby and what it means to the fans, and then it can make or break their week. You want the players to be extra mindful of the fact that, you know, you have to do everything you can to get yourself to Sunday in the best possible condition and mentality, but at the same time you also want them to go out there and play with a little bit of control in the game, and you want to try and find a balance between, you know, excited enthusiasm, but also control in the way we play, and not get too immersed in the passion of the game.
It is the first time that the two sides have met in the league for 5 years. What kind of atmosphere are you expecting?
That'll be a brilliant atmosphere. I think, you know, any game that you go out early on before the game and the crowd are going to be noisy, there's going to be starting a little bit earlier than you probably would normally be. I've played in front of St Andrews in some big games, you know, some playoff games where the atmosphere is electric, even in the warm-up sometimes. And I think that's great. I think, you know, the earlier it starts, the more the players can adjust to that, and I think the players have to use that atmosphere, you know, and I think the message for me to the crowd will be, you know, to do that for as long as you can. You know, there's going to be periods in the game where we might need 5 minutes of help from the crowd. There might be some little lulls in a game, but I wouldn't imagine there'd be too many lulls. I would imagine it'd be played at a fairly good pace. But that's where we need the fans, and it is very, very important that they give us that backing, which I'm sure they will, in what will be an amazing game to be part of.
You talk about fans there, and you alluded to it a bit earlier, but you know, the police have obviously given out their warnings of, you know, wanting to avoid any trouble and just wanting fans to enjoy the game. What would your message be in that respect to the fans?
I think the same. I think that last season, before the Capital One Cup game, I think both managers, I think, you know, through the clubs, we put a statement out just trying to put a little bit of common sense. I'm sure it's not going to make a massive amount of difference what I say here, but you just want people to at least go to the game and feel safe, you know, and feel that they can go and watch a game. Hopefully it's a good game of football and not worry too much about off the pitch. But again, listen, I'm sure the club and the police, everyone will make the usual precautions, and there'll be plenty of presence there, probably a little bit more than the normal game, I would imagine. Being facetious there, I'm sure there'll be a lot more than the normal game. But and again, I hope we're talking about the football element to the game afterwards.
An added bit of spice is the return of Steve Bruce, the first time he's come here as Villa manager. What kind of reception do you think he'll get from the fans?
Well, I think part and parcel of being the opposition manager, particularly one that's managed our team for so long and played, he knows it. I'm sure Steve will know that. You know, he's in for a warm reception, shall I say, or hot reception. I know he's joked and said that Blues fans need to be a bit more creative in what they call him. I don't know whether they might take that challenge on. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll try and think of one or two different ways. He might regret saying that one. But look, Steve, you know, Steve's an experienced guy, and I think I was exactly the same at Villa Park last season, where you go out there, you know what's coming, and you kind of half enjoy it a little bit, because that's part of the probably pantomime's the wrong word, but you know, the theatre of a local derby in terms of what goes on. So I don't think that'll affect him too much. It certainly won't affect us. It'll be quite good fun and good natured, I'm sure. And I know deep down most of the fans will appreciate the job that he did, albeit they probably won't show it too much in the 90 minutes.
And what do you think of the job he's done so far with Villa? Obviously unbeaten, won their last 2. Are you surprised at how he seems to have turned things around there?
No, not really. No, I think, you know, when you see a club that perhaps, again, I don't really like to use the word turmoil, but had a real spell where things have not gone so well. Obviously relegation, but you know, they tried to go down one different route, and again, I'm not judging those people because I don't know them particularly well. And then Steve comes in, and you know that he's going to stabilise a little bit. He knows exactly what challenges you face in the Championship, and I think the teams he's picked, the way he's played, have alluded to trying to solve some of them problems. You know, they've been a little bit harder to beat. They've certainly worked harder. I think he made a point about that perhaps not as fit as he'd like them to be, which is standard when you go in and try to work them a bit harder. And they've had some decent results, but I don't think that'll count for too much on Sunday. We've been excellent at home this season so far. You know, we beat Sheffield Wednesday, we beat Norwich, teams perhaps that would be fancy to come and get a result, and the big games we've performed really well at home so far.
We're talking there about form, but often with these games, the saying goes that form goes out of the window. Do you go along with that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, listen, you'd rather go into the game, you know, having won the last 6 and being in scintillating form, because I'm sure that your team would be even more confident. But I don't think recent results, when it's a game of this magnitude, I don't think recent results matter too much. I think when the game kicks off, no one's going to be counting your points over the last 3 or 4 games. It's going to be how you deal with those early moments in the game and how you deal with what happens within the game, and how you manage those moments. So I think both teams will be aware of that. Both teams will be pretty confident. Our home form, their recent run of form, and I'm sure it'll be a really, really good game.
In terms of looking at your last 3 games, there have been the 2 defeats. How important is this game to kind of, you know, get some momentum back and keep pushing again and get back into those playoff places?
Yeah, I don't think any more important than it would be anyway. I mean, I think just because it's a local derby, I think, you know, it can't be any more important, and we're aware of that for the fans. But like I said, it's trying to play to a plan, and it's trying to stick to that plan as much as we possibly can. Of course, no game goes completely to plan, and you've got to deal with those, you know, facets of the game. But I think the biggest thing for me is that we'll go with a pretty clear head of what's needed, and I don't think recent games or recent results are really going to matter too much. In some ways, in fact, I think they'll probably spur us on to put them right, and what better way to try and do it than in a local derby.
You've talked about often having a glass of wine before a game. It's a 12 o'clock kick-off. Are you going to be doing that this Sunday?
I might have a bottle for breakfast, I think, this time round. I might need to, and I won't be bothered whether it's a Merlot or a Rioja, quite frankly. Might even put it on my cornflakes. No, listen, again, that was just something I spoke about, and I've probably done it 2 or 3 times this season. But just occasionally you get that lull. 3 o'clock makes it a little bit easier. 12 o'clock's going to make it a bit more of a challenge. Not sure if anyone's got a brown paper bag I can smuggle it into the ground, because they check your cars now at this place, so I might have to be a bit more creative. Yeah, probably won't have one this weekend. Be a bit more focused.
Do you get nervous? Will you get nervous for this?
Not really. I don't really get nervous. I think what you tend to find is I think every manager will say the same. When you're in a good run of form, you turn up and you feel great. That's how I feel. Feel very confident. If you've lost a game or 2, then you perhaps know there's a little bit more on the game, and that's perhaps when you sometimes just have that little bit of an edge about you, and that's, I think, because you want your team to do so well, and when you work so hard during the week, you know, unfortunately in our profession, unlike a lot of professions, you get defined once, twice, sometimes even 3 times a week as to whether you're doing a good job. So there's a bit more pressure on those game days, but usually it's just to relax and make sure that, you know, we've got a little bit more focus on the game from a bit more of an even keel.
Just finally from me, before you throw me out, my Sky colleague has told me I've got to ask you, are you a Villa fan?
No. As a kid, I had plenty of teams that I liked. And they were one of the teams. I openly admitted when I came here that I followed some of their results, but hadn't actually gone to Villa Park as a kid. And then I think when you're 16, you join teams and you have a profession. You don't really look at results of any team. So I think, having played at St Andrews for 2 years and having now been here as a manager for 2 years, I like to think people will understand that I'm thoroughly blue and a Birmingham City fan.